with a big stand like Stone Cold with a few beers. Play the game, I end the game, I'm champion, I'm Triple H. Undertaker, I'm your maker, bury the brother like Kane. Ooh, 1-3, hit the tombstone, hit the choke slam on face. Ooh, yeah, like a macho, heel turn like a muscle. If you sell a lot of tomatoes, I'ma keep a couple models. Ooh, and you may call me HBK. When I'm tuning up the vein, you best be getting in my way. Ooh, yeah, I'm degenerate, I love it, yes, I love it. If you wait down with that, then I got two is for you suck it. Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, hold another cup. Let's be busy 23.
Welcome to your longest running Australian wrestling podcast, Wrestle Radio Australia. I'm your host, Todd Eastman. It's good to be here with you this week for this special episode. Normally I have a guest on or a tag team on or something like that, and we sit down and talk all about their career and all of that good stuff. But today we're doing something a little different. I've got three workers from EPW because this coming, the 27th, I think it is EPW ReAwakening 20. It is 20 years of EPW, and 20 years in anything, any form of entertainment, any business like that is a big thing. And to be selling out a good 2 weeks ahead of that time, that is a great accomplishment for EPW. So we've got David Storm, Julian Ward, and Edith Night coming on, all in very different stages of their career. So we talk a lot about that, a lot about the starting of EPW and ReAwakening itself, and all of that good stuff. So a really fun conversation with those three people. So I sort of want to get to it straight away. But before I do that, what I need you guys to do is to please like, subscribe. We're on YouTube, we're on Apple Pods, we're on Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast from, we're there. Please like, subscribe, 5-star, get it out so everyone can see and hear what we're doing here at WRA, because we really are trying to promote Australian professional wrestling the best way we can. Also, we have, and I did this on, if you listen to the chicken salad, making chicken salad show I do with Lachlan Albert, I put together the competition we've got, and it's for this steel cage. I'm so terrible with working a camera. Steel cage challenge WrestleMania game. I had it sitting here. It's pretty much brand new. I haven't even been out of the box. So I thought I would, just sitting around doing nothing. So I thought I would give this away. So for the next couple of weeks, if you click the link to watch this or to listen to this show, whatever link you click from a social media, Facebook, we're Wrestle Radio Australia, Twitter, we're at Wrestle Radio AU. We're also at Wrestle Radio AU on Instagram. Any of those social medias, please share that post, tag us in it, and you'll be in the running to win that. It's be drawn in 3 weeks. So please get out there, get involved, and help spread the word about professional wrestling in this country like we do every week right here at Wrestle Radio Australia. I'm, of course, at Beast Eastman. That's it for the quick little rundown. I think I want to get straight into this interview because, like I said, it's something that I don't know if it's been done too much before, and well, I guess 20 years things don't really happen a hell of a lot, but hasn't been done too much before, and I really had a fun time talking with these guys. That is coming up right after this, right here on Wrestle Radio Australia.
December 3rd, Max Watts. PWA returns home. Now we conquer live, December 3rd, live on Fight.
Hey everyone, I just thought I would jump on real quick because I just wanted to explain the audio for this interview you're about to hear. David Storm, Julian Ward, and Edith Night, their audio is fine. There is nothing wrong with their audio. It is my audio, so when you hear me speak in the interview, it's a bit not the best, and that's because like an idiot. I did not check my settings properly, and it went off the Bluetooth headset, the Bluetooth earphones. The microphone that's built in that is my microphone for this interview, unfortunately. I didn't realize till after the interview, and I was producing it, so this is why it's here and not normally where I do my podcast from. But I thought I would let you guys know just so you knew what was going on. I don't like just letting it go and have people wondering what happened. So that's the reason it happened. Aside from that, it was a great interview, and I'm really happy that I got to chat with those three people, and they will absolutely kill it at ReAwakening. So that's all I have to say really right now. So on with the interview.
Guys, thank you. That's a full of faces at the start of me. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Like I said to you, Tommy, when I first sort of pitched this idea to you, 20 years of any promotional show is an amazing accomplishment in any form of entertainment or anything. But for you guys in Perth, you have to be psyched, especially now that sort of the world's opening up again, Australia's opening up again, to be able to do this. So thanks for coming on and having a chat. First of all, for you, Stormy, you were in the first one. It was just called Awakening. So you wrestled like Correct. 4 times that night. So what was it like that night?
It was a blur. It was a blur, man. Like we were, to do a 16-person one-night tournament with 16 people of basically zero wrestling experience, never wrestled in front of a live crowd. To say that we had any level of training is a little bit of a stretch. We trained hard in the lead up to it, but we didn't really know what we were doing. We were trying to put it together. And I mean, it was us just flying by the seat of our pants. And a lot of it was just, we had one night to do this thing. We had, or it was really an afternoon. So we had one afternoon to try and do this thing. And we had no idea if we were ever going to have another show. So it really was, let's just pour everything we can. Let's empty the jug and see how we go. And, it's, I'm sure if we watch it back now, it would be an absolutely horrific watch. Overly indulgent, too long. But I think that the people who were there on that afternoon, they saw effort. And, the only wrestling we'd really seen was there was the occasional Superstars of Wrestling tour over here. And, you've got Brutus Beefcake and One Man Gang going out there and doing 3 missed lockups and a roll-up and providing that as a night's entertainment. That people who were invested in a more modern style of wrestling and wanted to see some effort, I think that they came that day and saw what they were looking for. They saw the beginnings of what they were looking for. And no matter how awful the wrestling was and how overindulgent the matches were in terms of length and what we thought we were capable of, that people saw effort. And I think that went a really long way in building the beginnings of a supporter base.
So what was if you don't mind, what was the draw for that night for your first ever show? Because that was your first ever show.
Yeah. Old school Aussie wrestling 450, brother. Packed them in, couldn't have fit anyone else in the building. Legitimately, there was probably we started with about 200 people, and when you run an event that goes 3.5 hours of sloppy wrestling, I think by the time me and Jimmy Payne went out for the main event, there was probably about 100 to 120 people left in the building.
So still, but like for a debut show, there are a lot of shows nowadays around the country that are probably killed to have that many people rocking up.
Sure. Look, and maybe if you go back and look at the tape, maybe even what I'm saying is, still the Oz wrestling sweeping of the crowd. Who knows? But I mean, we did have one of those Superstars or WWA or one of those tours actually came to town not long before we did the show. So if people are on my Instagram at all, you'd see that I put up an old blue and black flyer to promote Awakening, which was our first show. And that was you know, that was our opportunity to promote to people, to say, hey, we're putting on this free show and come along and check us out.
And for you guys, Edith and Julian, do you like specifically remember the first time you saw an EPW show? You first, Edith.
Yeah. I remember that I had heard of EPW a long time ago because my cousin was really, really into wrestling, and he was going through, his father was really ill, and they wanted to go to wrestling together all the time. And they were looking for local wrestling because obviously some of the big promotions didn't really come very regularly. And yeah, he discovered EPW, and he was just like, this is the coolest thing in the whole world. Like, they have this guy called Shane Haste. He's the best. And then he told me about it. And I didn't get to too many shows, but I do remember going to some like more casual market shows and things like that, and just, yeah, being pretty excited. It wasn't like the most recent one that I can remember, because my memory is terrible and I don't remember anything I did as a child, was just before I started training. It was Hot Summer's Night, and it must have been 2018, I think. And it was pretty spectacular. There was a 3 stages of hell match that ended in I think it was a ladder match between the Untouchables and the Street Gang Hooligans. And yeah, like, it's just ridiculous that it was as good or better than any wrestling that I had seen on TV. You don't expect that from local wrestling.
Yeah, so I understand. That's the first time that Big Brody Marshall and I, because we were mates before, went to see RCW. Was just like, wow, this is as good as Ring of Honor. That's pretty much what spurred us to go, I wonder if you can train to actually do this. Was that sort of the thing for you? You sort of like, you saw that and you thought, I want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I wanted to do it before I even saw local wrestling. But, you know, the dream kind of went on a bit of a roller coaster and crashed and burned and stuff after a while, after, you know, not to get too political, but I thought the way women's wrestling was for a while, and thought, I'll pass. So yeah, it sparked back up. It sparked back up, I suppose, when women's wrestling became a little bit more taken seriously, I suppose, all over the world. But I remember specifically looking on the EPW Instagram page and seeing Alison Cruz, and seeing even just Ring Bell Mel, and seeing like a female presence there. And I thought, oh, okay, so this is something that is possible.
Yeah. And what about you, Julian? What's your first sort of memories of EPW?
I was actually I was a big old Marksky for EPW for a while before I started. Dave, what year did you? Dave, what year did you retire in the match with Carlo and Seb? Was it?
I think it was when Seb was born, so that must have been 2011, I guess.
Okay, so that was like my second or third show, I think, because I do have a distinct memory. I think I've told this story to Dave before, but Dave retired at the end of the show, and it was like, yeah, if people from Perth are listening, they'll understand how like important Dave is to the Perth fans. And so when he retired, there was a lot of really emotional people in the crowd, and I do remember like weaseling my way to the front of the guardrail, and Dave was giving everyone hugs at the front, and I gave Dave a hug and said thanks for all the memories, and I'd seen 2 shows. I don't even think he was on one of them either, so I think I'd seen him wrestle once. It must have been a good match.
It's such a wrestling thing though. When you first retired back in,
yeah, so that was 2011, like Dave said. So I probably started going to shows in 2010 or something like that. I had a buddy that his name's he's got a wrestling name now. I'm going to call him his real name. His name's Mitch Ducks. He started training probably a year ago. But he was me and him were big wrestling super fans, and he caught on to EPW probably a couple of years before I did, and tried to get me to come along for quite a while. And then he was the impetus to start training as well. So we both went to an EPW tryout in it wasn't a tryout back then. It was like an open day in 2012 or something along those lines. He ended up chucking it in, 2 or 3 months later, but yeah, the rest is history for me. I used to go to basically every show after I started going. I after I saw Dave retire and he wasn't on the shows anymore, then I started going all of them.
Far more enjoyable once I was off the show.
I think I saw Shane Hayes wrestle once, and then I just had a massive heart on for EPW ever since then, still to this day.
So for you, David, how much have you seen the maturation of EPW grow for these like big, the ReAwakening events? Like, I think it was the last one you had was a 2-night show, wasn't it? So just to go from where you went for like 200 people in a 16-man tournament that went for 3.5 years to where you're sort of gearing up for now, because like normally I would have like one of the guys from EPW on just for a last minute sort of push of ticket sales and all of that. I don't have to bother about that this time because you guys you're 2.5 weeks out and you're already fully sold out. That's got to be like a huge accomplishment for you guys.
It is, because it's been a really long time since we've had a sellout culture in EPW. So when we were back in the day, when we were doing the shows up at the WRA showgrounds, we would occasionally get the odd sellout, and sellout culture becomes a thing. If you know that there's a potential that you could miss out, people then go about buying their tickets earlier. And Perth people are renowned for not buying their tickets early, to the point where I don't remember the gentleman's name who used to be the promoter of Soundwave. He actually wrote a giant op-ed that was printed either online or in a metal magazine, where he basically said, hey, Perth people, get your shit together. Otherwise, we're going to stop bringing tours to Perth. And that they based a lot of national tours now around not touring Perth. And part of that is because there isn't much of Perth is very much a we'll wait and see kind of audience. Is there anything better? Is there anything better? Is there anything better? And then they get to the Friday and go, no, there's nothing better. I guess we'll go to whatever it is that's on the weekend. And that makes it really hard for touring brands, obviously, because in what they're doing, they could miss Perth, which is a very expensive leg of a tour. And the rest of the national tour actually ends up propping up the Perth leg, which doesn't end up making any money. And we've always suffered from the same thing, that if people realize that they can get tickets ahead of time, or that there will be tickets available on the door on the night, they're not going to go ahead and purchase. They're just going to rock up and buy. And the venue that we're currently at, it's not a particularly strong walk-up venue. That where it is in Perth, it's a pretty exclusive suburb, and we're next to a few exclusive suburbs. So it's not the sort of place that people just find themselves wandering past. Prior to this, we're in a much lower socioeconomic area, and there would be a lot more walk-up traffic on the night. So, having a sellout for such a big show is really amazing, that after this amount of time, because we've just gotten used to the fact that we just don't sell out anymore. We've had really strong attendance for the last maybe 3 years or so. But to get an official sellout, you're normally edging up towards it by the time you get to show day. To be sold out this far out and actually have people messaging and saying, have I missed out? Yeah, you have, unfortunately. It's a really nice feeling just to know that there are that many people out there who still care about the product. And I think an anniversary always brings people out of the woodwork as well. And for lots of people on the show, this is their highest profile spot up until this date, and I'm sure they want people to come along and see whatever it is that they're doing. I don't have that problem, unfortunately. I'll be riding the bench.
I think Perth is a lot like Brisbane with that, where they are very much a walk-up crowd. Pre-sales are never really strong because it's nice out. Maybe we'll go to the beach instead. Oh, what's on? Yep. Oh, we'll go and see that. It was only until I think I've noticed when all the COVID restrictions came in, and then they were pretty much saying, look, we can't sell you tickets at the door. You need to buy your tickets beforehand, because if you don't, you're not going to get a seat. We have to make sure this thing. I think that's maybe changed a little bit of the culture now, because people are just starting getting used to, I better get in case they limit the seating, and I'm stuffed.
Yeah, definitely. It certainly has changed for us here, because like you said, we did do limited capacity shows to start when we came back. So we did have a few sellouts, but not a sellout like this one. So, the first couple of COVID restricted sellouts were sort of 250 people, whereas we're sold out to the tune of over 450 for this show. So,
and for you, Edith, this would be your first reawakening, and you've got a sellout. And how's add a bit more pressure to you, or just psyched to get out there and have a crack?
Well, thankfully, it's my second reawakening, so all the pressure from here is taken off. I haven't really how more people that is going to make me feel. Hopefully, the more people, the less people. You know, like there's too many people who look like individual people, so they become a crowd rather than individuals. So can't be scared of lots of people. That's what I'm sticking to.
We had that with homecomings up here. We had drew 450. I'm much more comfortable walking out in front of 450 people and cutting a promo than I am going out in front of 50 people and cutting a promo, because I can see 50 people. So it's sort of like, I would rather talk to where I don't, there's just a blur of people than all of that.
It just becomes a collection of faces rather than individuals. When there's 25 people there and you're let's say doing a showcase. To me, the showcase is, particularly for inexperienced wrestlers, is the most it's such a scary place. You're out there in front of 25 people, sometimes up to 100 people, but sometimes only 25, 30 people, particularly while COVID restrictions were in place. And to go out there is just the loneliest place on earth. That just, in a crowd of 450, someone is going to make noise. And when someone makes noise, you kind of feed off that energy. But in a crowd of 20, it's very possible that just everybody's quiet that night. And it's the loneliest place on earth.
And for you, Julian, you'd be like, what, first reawakening main event, mate, still in about 2 weeks ago. You're going to walk in there and tell everyone to thank you for the house, or what?
Not quite. Are we allowed to cuss on this show?
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, mate, I was shitting my pants before I saw the crowd number, so that hasn't helped. It hasn't hindered it. Mikey Nichols in the main event of Reawakening is enough for me to, be packing them. So, no, but I'm also very excited. I think it goes both ways. Like the shows which are sort of predicted to have somewhat of a smaller attendance, leading up to it, it's probably like a little bit of an afterthought where you don't really overthink the whole situation. And then like Dave and Edith said, when you get out there, it's so intimate that it becomes a little bit confronting. Whereas the big shows like this, you sort of you're kind of like, oh shit, this is a big deal. Like, all the tickets are gone, the hype's, as high as it's been in a long time. So the build up and the anticipation, it's like, it's a little bit more intense. It's sort of like, it's been the only thing I could think about for 2 weeks, and I can only imagine it's going to get worse in the next 2 weeks. So in that sense, it feels a little bit more, I think intense is the word I'd use. And then hopefully, like the guys said, when we get out there, I just can't see anybody, and I beat Mikey in 30 seconds and it's just easy and I can go home. That's my plan.
Well, it's really sort of it's a perfect storm for you guys, where you've had the 20th anniversary at the same time that sort of everything's opening up. So people are probably really, I mean, you guys have been open for a little while, but not to the extent of the way it's sort of the feeling you get around the country at the moment, where just everyone's, it's sort of like a huge sigh of relief that everything's sort of getting back to normal now. Maybe that's for you guys has been perfect for spurning those ticket sales on.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of an attitude, which in hindsight was untrue, and it probably didn't affect the EPW guys as such, but where we thought, because the world was so segregated for a while and WA couldn't get anywhere else, there was a little bit of a vibe where sometimes it kind of felt like what we were doing nobody would ever see. We were just hiding away here in Perth, just trying to do our best for the EPW fans. So rightly or wrongly, I do think now that there's a light at the end of the tunnel somewhat. It seems like, this is go time. EPW is as hot as it's ever been. And we've had the advantage of running shows consistently for the last 12 months when a lot of places haven't. So now we feel like we're, I sort of feel naked, like we're exposed to the rest of the country, and everyone's going to see this and people are going to start moving around again soon. So the pressure's certainly on for us to perform, but I think Yeah, just a question for Dave, but I think that historically EPW, like when the pressure's on, it's sort of when we've seemed to thrive. So I'm sure that'll happen again.
Mm. Well,
Yeah, absolutely. I actually remember, we do our usual, every show has their pre-production meeting where everybody, but ours is always less about, hey guys, remember this and don't forget that. It's less about going over show order and stuff like that. And it's more about trying to hit an emotional chord with the team and try and sum up whatever whatever leading into the show has been on the minds of the people organizing the show, or in turn, what's still to come. And I remember a few years ago, and I think because of how we started, and we were very much looked down upon by the rest of the Australian wrestling scene in those early years, that we had a very quiet chip on our shoulder, and it never really went away. And it is something that people from Western Australia have in general. So if you talk to West Australian sports people, if you talk to West Australian musicians, there is very much an attitude of, we feel forgotten by the rest of the world. And in many respects, that's a good thing. It's why Perth sort of maintains its identity as the biggest little town in the world. But the negative part of that, obviously, is that there are times where you feel like, that ego from within sort of tells you we deserve more attention than what we get, and we're not getting it. Maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, though, we had to take a really hard look at ourselves and say, we have been constantly talked about as the best in Australia. Other states had passed us, like they had well and truly put their nose to the grindstone, and they passed us in many respects. A lot of those are promotional aspects or business aspects that the game had very much passed us by. And we had to take a really good hard look at ourselves and what we were becoming, that we did sort of buy into the mentality, because in-ring has always been really important in Perth, and it's always been the thing of, you can be a great character, but if you can't go in ring and hold up your end of the bargain, chances of you getting to the top of the card in EPW are pretty slim. And we had to take a look at what we wanted to be, and the number one goal that we came up with was, we didn't care so much about ticket sales or whether we could get our product streaming online. None of these things. The number one focus became, we wanted to become the number one in-ring product in the country again. And that was super important to us, that we'd always prided ourselves and built ourselves on that reputation. And, I'm not here to run down anybody else's business or say what anybody else is doing, especially because people just haven't had the capacity to run. So it's kind of hard for us to stack ourselves up against anybody else. But what I can say is, we are absolutely firing on all cylinders here. And we have an incredibly strong team. And if you look at our cards over the course of the year, there have been shows where Michael Morleone rode the bench, where Gavin rode the bench, where I rode the bench, where Mikey Nichols rode the bench, Damian Slater, Marcus Pitt. All of these guys took at least one show off this year, sometimes two, and we are still delivering an incredibly strong in-ring product. And that is just a testament to the hard work that everybody's doing. That, there is a wave behind those guys. The bottom of the card is pushing the middle of the card. The middle of the card is pushing the top of the card. And I can tell you, those names I just listed, those guys aren't stepping aside for anybody. If you want that spot from them, you're going to have to push them off that ledge. They're not going to go quietly into the night. They need to be pushed from those spots. And, it really is an incredible testament to the hard work that everybody has put in, that everybody is pushing at every level to try and kick, scratch, and claw to get to that next level. And I'm incredibly proud of where we're at the moment, that we do have this ridiculously strong card coming up next week where, there's an 8-man tag where you have former EPW champions, future EPW champions, and a couple of incredibly strong character wrestlers all piled into this one match just so we could get them on the show. Yeah, you know, we're catch us if you can.
For you, Edith, too, it's got to be good to know that you're not restricted for the fact that, oh, look, we couldn't get a girl in to wrestle, so I'm sorry, but you're not going to be on the card. The fact that they're just like, no, we're going to put you on. You're a wrestler. We're going to put you on with another wrestler. Happens to be a guy. We trust that you guys are going to have a great match. So it's got to be really encouraging for you.
Yeah, I mean, if I was told, yeah, look, you're probably good enough to be on this show, but there isn't a woman, so you're going to have to sit out consistently for 2 years, I would have retired by now. Like in Perth, I haven't wrestled women because there aren't really too many to wrestle. So like I would have had virtually no matches if I was restricted to only wrestle people that are the same gender as me. And you know, I certainly would not be anywhere near where I am today if that kind of restriction was placed on me. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I train with everyone else. You know, I've trained with men the entire time. You know, I would not be interested in being restricted to only wrestling people of the same gender. And I'm really grateful as well, not in an environment where Dave hasn't forced me and said like, yeah, but the crowd might not really understand, you know, like no one's told me that I only need to wrestle women. Everyone from as soon as I walked in the doors, they said, she's a wrestler, treat her like a wrestler. So yeah, it would be very hypocritical to, at training, be told, hit her like a wrestler, and then on shows, no, sorry, you're in the women's division now.
Yeah, I remember back in the day training like at RC Dub, and I think a rookie said something about, I don't know if I'd have that when I have a match with a woman. And I was like, I wouldn't either, man. I've been hit by Demi. I don't want to get hit by Demi again. I'm all good with that.
Yeah, a lot of the time you'll find it is that like a lot of girls do just kind of have that same like chip on the shoulder a little bit. Like I've definitely been in, training with women who will hit me a lot harder than the men will hit me because, you know, you got to hit hard. You got to prove that you're as tough as everyone else. So just hit as hard as you can, pull the hair for real, slap for real.
For you guys coming into this reawakening, or especially for you, Julian, has this been like a culmination of a lot of hard work for you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can't even I haven't processed it yet. It's still a little bit confusing, like the way that the build up has been, because the build up's gone from 2010 when I thank Dave for the memories to, you know, like all these little, but my favorite movie is No Country for Old Men. You guys watch that? You know, at the end when he says, I got here the same way the coin did, where it's just a sequence of random events that led to that. So it's felt a bit like that, but then when I look back, it was all decisions that I made and work that I decided to put in back then that's sort of in a roundabout way ended up here. It sort of feels like I just had a really good year and now I'm here. But the more you sort of open things up, it's clearly, like you said, a culmination of a lot of hard work and then a lot of opportunity as well. Like you can be, it's like Edith just said, if Edith, had all the ability in the world, but there was no girls for her to wrestle and then she was left off shows and then she'd never be anywhere. And it doesn't matter how good she is. So I've trained really hard and for a long time to be in a spot where I felt like I could perform in matches like this. And then I was also given opportunities to sink or swim by the EPW management. And, you know, sometimes I hit home runs and sometimes I miss, but I tried to learn from all of them. And I think that the attitude that I've carried with me the whole time has paid off now in 2 weeks. So I'm super excited.
Well, there's a good chance that if the world hadn't gone the way it had, you wouldn't even be in Australia, really. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I mean, that whole situation, like, I've spoken about it so much that I'm over it now. But For a second there, I thought that I'm over it, I promise. For a second there, I thought that like that it had all been, it'd gone to shit, and that I sort of didn't know what my route back to, because like when I left, part of me felt like I had to do it to be taken seriously, here and everywhere. And then part of me felt like I was letting the team down at EPW too, because, people like the Untouchables work that I did for a year there. And I felt like people put a lot of work into me, and I kind of never paid it off. So for the second time at Davis Storm punt, it felt like the perfect storm when I came back to reshift my focus away from, I still had a lot of growth and work to do here, and swings and roundabouts, and like put me back here. So I felt like that was my big chance to repay everybody that put faith in me for the last few years. And I think that this year's been probably the best year of my career. So who's to say that if I was in some other location that place that we shall not name, that I would be doing any better. Maybe I would have never taken off and ended up back home anyway. So if I spend all my time trying to theorize on what would have happened, I'd have sent myself crazy. But this is when I started training, this is exactly where I wanted to be. Like it sounds a little bit cheesy, like I'm trying to sell tickets, but the tickets are all sold. So now I've got no reason to lie. Yeah. I seriously, when I started training, I just really, really, really wanted to be on an EPW show. And then after about a year of I just ate shit for the first year of my career on EPW shows. And then after a little while, I was like, no, I want to wrestle the upper card people. I want to be in the mix a little bit. And then when I hit 7 or 8 years and was around guys like Slater and Marcus Pitt all the time, I decided that, I always knew that, but I really buckled down on the fact that I wanted to be the top guy in EPW. And like Dave said, those guys aren't moving for shit. So I had to find a way to break through. And I think I put the work in and weaseled my way through the obstacles of all the unbelievable wrestlers we have, and took lessons from everybody that I wrestled and everybody that had helped me. And for the most rambly answer of all time, but now we're here, and it does feel like it. Fate is a weird word, but as far as I'm concerned, it was always supposed to be this way, and it didn't happen the way I planned it out, but it's happening anyway.
Yeah, well, for you and for Edith, how important is it now, sort of looking back, that I always have this thing where you see all the new guys coming in and they sort of want everything now. I want this now. This is what I want. How important is it really to, as they say, pay your dues, to form you into where you've reached now? Especially you, Julian, and you, Edith, you'd be still sort of working on paying your dues, getting experience. So for you guys, how important is it and is it something that you guys talk to rookies about, where this is just something you have to do because it'll make you a better worker in the long run?
Yeah, that was super important to me. I had so much respect for EPW when I started anyway, because I'd been a fan, and in no way, shape or form did I think that, I didn't know if I'd ever be as good as the Shanes and the Mikeys and the Daves and the Vices and guys that were around at that time. So I didn't think I deserved anything, and I didn't deserve anything. So I always saw it as a long road, but some people come in, and it's not their fault, but some people do come in with the attitude that, I'm going to train for 6 months and then start getting on shows, and I'll do some sick shit. I'll be in some highlight videos, and then hopefully they put the belt on me. And it doesn't, it doesn't work like that. You have to gain the respect of your peers, and you have to, somebody asked me once recently, if I had any tips on getting over with the crowd. And I think that the most important thing is that they have to believe what they're seeing. And so I've played the long game with the EPW fans. They saw me I wrestled in boardies for my first 2 years, and was looking at the lights every month. And they saw me evolve, and they saw me leave and go to train with Lance Storm. They saw me come back better, and they saw me get in better shape. And I think that they, over a period of 9 years, they believe in me now. They know that I give a shit. They know that I try, and they know what I'm trying to achieve. So they've jumped on board. The fans have no reason to be super invested in someone they've seen 3 or 4 times. And I know everyone wants to pull off these New Japan matches and stuff they see straight off the bat to impress everybody, but I I'm sure that all of us will agree, it's not quite as impressive as it seems. Like trying to replicate somebody that does something better than you anyway. I just want to see people that have the right attitude and are going out there and trying to do it the right way. I actually think it was probably easier for me to accept that, A, because I started after being a fan of EPW for so long, and B, because I started in a group of wrestlers that all cracked onto shows. So I had a support network, where I think it would have been harder for Edith, because I can't remember exactly who you came in with, but it was a smaller group and it seemed a little bit more, they're all gone?
Hmm?
Yeah, well, there you go. So it seemed like, I was going to say it splintered a little bit, and I felt bad for saying it, but apparently it did splinter a lot.
Yep.
So it would have been harder for Edith, because I saw guys that started with me that were in the exact same position I was. I remember when Logan Gray won the EPW championship, and he started after I started, and that was the first time I was like, you piece of shit, like that. I wish I was in that spot. But if I had won the EPW championship when I was 19, I would have been the worst EPW champion by a country mile. So I'm glad that I played the long game and did it the right way.
Okay, guys. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, I want to get your answers. I just know that I'm too cheap to buy proper Zoom, so it'll cut out in a second. So we'll be back right after this, right here on Wrestle Radio Australia.
Here's the Bro Day Pod. Apparently, he had two stipulations. One, it was an all or nothing in terms of accepting it. Either all of them accept it or none of them accept it.
Oh, dude.
So if there's anyone, he told them all, look, you either all have to accept it or you all don't accept it. So if there's someone like, no, I don't want it. You then, if you're one of the 14 that's like, no, it's okay, you don't have to, you're my friend, don't buy this for me, don't give me $1 million, but then you look at the other 30 and you're like, well, I can't do it to them, so okay, I'll accept. It ran along those lines, right?
Imagine that
Big
one
power play.
Imagine if there's one dude that's like,
nah,
guys, we can't do it to George.
I know,
we
right?
love George. Take these,
right?
I would be like, I will punch you. I will slaughter you now.
What? I don't care. I will kill you. Right? You don't want the $1 million? Fine. I'll have
dead
two.
Set. He's about to have 13 friends. I swear to God.
Follow Bro Day No Plan B podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts.
And we're back. Where we were before, we were talking about paying your dues, sort of thing. And Edith, where did you? Well, you, like I said before, you're probably still paying your dues. But how important do you know it is to you that you know you're doing it for? There's a reason why you're doing it, sort of thing.
Yeah. Honestly, I was probably going to just echo a lot of Jules' sentiments. Like, I think when I started wrestling, I thought, maybe in 5 years I'll be on one show. And I think that when I came in, a lot of people who had been training for 2, even longer, maybe 3 to 4 years before me still hadn't cracked it onto shows. So the people that I started training with were these people that had been busting their ass for years and not seeing that culminate in any kind of opportunities on shows and things like that. And I think, I definitely don't take anything for granted, and I definitely don't feel like I should be, well up the card. I think I'm further up it than I probably should be given my experience level, to be honest. But I think the thing that I've always loved about, as soon as I became a part of EPW, is that it's very clearly a meritocracy. The best wrestlers are at the top of the card, as it should be. So if I want to work my way up the card, then I need to be as good as those people on that next level, and there's no part of me that says I'm better than the mid-card champion. I should be in that spot. And I think if there was anyone that started wrestling at the same time as me and already thought that, they're crazy. So I feel like I'm leagues ahead of where I probably should be. I'm happy to pay my dues. I don't feel like I'm paying my dues. Like at shows when I'm helping out and doing jobs or whatever, I never feel like I'm being burdened with that. It's just part of the experience, part of being there. Some of the most fun you have is after the shows, packing down the ring with your friends and stuff like that. It doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like I'm in debt or anything like that.
So for you, Stormy, it's got to feel good to see that the people you train have that mindset. It's got to let you know that you're doing the right thing.
David Storm wrestled a main event his first match, he said.
Dues paid in full there, Julian. I'll be honest, I hear that phrase and you know, after you've been in 7-8 years and you've been setting up rings that whole time and doing fly drops and all that stuff, you kind of think that's a real thing. And now 20 years in, I kind of think about that phrase and I kind of stick my nose up at it a little bit, because to me, I will never be able to repay wrestling what it's given me. No chance. You know, the experiences I've had, the life lessons that it's taught me, the wonderful times I've had, the wonderful people that I've met. There's no way I could ever, paid in full just sounds like horseshit to me. I could never, ever pay back wrestling in full what I owe it. And I instead of looking at it as paying dues, I look at it from the simple phrase that you get back what you put in. You know, maybe people look at the way I enjoy EPW or the way I enjoy wrestling, and I know a lot of people look at me and you're such a positive, happy person, and I am positive and enthusiastic about my experiences in wrestling because I am so invested in what I'm doing. I'm invested in my own personal success and performance, but because I'm a trainer, I'm also invested in the performance of everybody else on that show. Everybody who takes the time and effort to come out once a week and train with me on a Monday night or on a Saturday. I have an investment in all those people not for the fact that they keep the doors open at the school. They are willing to give up their time and come down and listen to me rave and rant about wrestling. And trust me, Edie would know probably better than most that once I get on a good rant, that's the end of training gone for the last 45 minutes.
I'm shaking.
But I don't look at it much in the same way that Edie just said. I don't look at it as it being work or I'm doing it. I'm getting to hang with the people who I share this experience with. I can't take this back to work and talk to the people at work and say what a wonderful match I had on the weekend and hey, this happened and that was kind of funny and this happened in the ring and, you know, oh, did you notice that fan? These are the only people that I can share this thing with. And this thing has been like next to my wife and my kids, the most wonderful thing and experience that I've had in my life. Why wouldn't I want to be as invested in that as I possibly could be? Why wouldn't I want to spend more time and allow myself to share this experience as fully as I possibly can? Because the way that we, not just the way that we experience it, but also the way that we learn and develop, not just as wrestlers, but as human beings, is I go through this experience and then I can hang out with the people afterwards and verbalize the ways that I felt, the things that I was disappointed in, the things that I liked and didn't like. You know, often the best times that you can catch feedback as well as immediately after the show. And if someone is carrying poles to from the ring to the truck while they do that, well, shit, I can carry a pole too. I don't ever look at this as paying dues or whatever. I look at this as being invested in this thing that I'm incredibly passionate about and that I've loved since I was 9 years of age. And I get to spend, if you told 9-year-old me, hey man, you're gonna get to pack and unpack a wrestling ring this many times, I would have said, shit, man, that's great. I get to be around wrestling. And then as people develop, they just don't want to know about it anymore. They want to, and I realize that for a lot of people, wrestling is a business, and I do understand that. For me, it's just the thing that I'm incredibly passionate about. It's been my creative outlet for 20 years, and it's my form of expression where I take all the bullshit and all the frustration and everything else that regular life throws at you, and I get to take that to the ring and express myself as fully as I possibly can in a way that, you know, if I expressed myself at work the way I express myself in the ring, I would find myself out of a job pretty quickly. So you know, I want to be as immersed in that experience as I possibly can be. And if that means I'm still driving and packing trucks at 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, then so be it. That is just part of the experience. It's not paying a price. It is just being invested in what you love.
So I know you said that you wanted to just focus on being the best in-ring product in Australia, and you didn't really care about this. I don't live in Perth. I don't get to go and sit, so I care about live streaming, mate. So what's going on? Is this actually going to happen or not? Because the last time we talked, which was got to be nearly 6 months ago, you tested some things and you'd sort of done stuff like that. So how close are we now? Because I mean, I've checked in.
No closer than we were when we talked about it. There's an old saying, because things are pretty slow to come to Perth, that WA actually stands for wait a while. And just, you know, we are very much, because EPW is a passion project for just about everybody that's involved. And despite the fact that we have been able to turn out a professional product for so many years, it is something that people do take on in their spare time. And the costs associated with streaming in Perth as we currently stand is just too steep a hill for us to climb at the moment. I talked recently about how, you know, and I would love for us to eventually be able to stream our product. I think that would be great, not just for the product, but also for the individuals involved. I think they're going to get a lot more eyes on them, particularly from overseas and over east. But I never lose sight of the fact that we are a live product. That is what we're selling. Without those people who give us their hard-earned money, and more importantly, this is something I crap on about at training constantly, they're giving you their time. They're giving you their evening, their Saturday evening, of which, you know, if you have kids, you don't have too many of those spare to go out and do something in your own time. They're giving you their time, which is the most valuable resource that any of us possibly have, to come out and see us. And it's super important to me that if they give us their time, that is our complete focus, that live experience is as enjoyable as it possibly can be, and that all of us are as tuned to that and not worried about, you know, how long do we need for the break? When do we need to go back? When does the stream recommence? All of these things. I just want to be focused on putting the best live product forward that we possibly can. And, you know, I'm not involved in these conversations in terms of sorting out the technical side of it. But personally, it's not, I would love to see it happen. And at the same time, as the guy backstage pulling the strings, I'm just not, my focus isn't on that at all. My focus is on making sure that we are all putting in the best effort that we can for the people who have paid their money and given us their time and come out on the night to see us.
And I mean, there's not that much of a turnaround anyway from the show to when it's up on Vimeo nowadays, is it?
No, it's still probably a little longer than we'd like, and I think that's something we're slowly working on. It's always great if you can capitalize on the momentum that you have in terms of fan engagement online, and if people are talking about a particular match and saying something went well, it's good if it's there for people to be able to see it as quickly as possible. But, you know, that's, to me, they're all residual effects of focusing on your live product. That if all these other things come and we do get more views on it because a match does have a bit of hype behind it, then that's all great. But yeah, I want to be as focused on those 450 fans that are going to come out to ReAwakening 20.
All right, guys. I was thinking about like what question I could ask that would be something that you guys could sort of pick out. If you could bring, I'll start off with you, Julian. If you could bring one guy back from the whole of the 20 years of EPW for a match, who would it be?
Ooh.
You probably faced them all, Stormy, so it doesn't really count for you.
I wrestled Havoc last weekend, which was pretty cool. That was a nice little throwback to the old school.
He's such a nice guy, isn't he?
Oh, it knocked me for six because I'd heard, you know, some of the horror stories, and I was like, all right, you know, if he's a salty old dude that wants to go, then I guess I'm gonna have to go. And then he was just the nicest guy in the world. So God bless Havoc. But to answer your question, The easy answer is probably Shane Hayes because he was such a big. So when I started training, after about 6 months, Shane and Mikey were in Noah, and Shane blew his knee out and came back and helped with the training for about 6 months ish. And he was just, there was such an impressionable time in my wrestling career where I was like, I knew the rolls and the bumps, and I just wanted to soak some stuff up. So, and he was, my favorite wrestler before I started training as well. So Shane Hayes is probably the easy answer, but there's so many. Jimmy Payne's got a bit of mystique around him. Jimmy Payne, I saw him I probably saw his, only a few of his last handful of matches before he skipped out. But the way everybody talks about him and what he means to the OGs, it's clear that he must have had a massive impact on everything that we have today. So and he had that real physical and aggressive style. So Jimmy Payne and Shane Hayes would probably be the big two.
How about you, Edith?
I mean, yeah, look, it's hard to go past the guys that Jules said, but it's also hard for me to picture myself in that situation at all. I'm still just no one, I shouldn't wrestle anyone, especially shouldn't wrestle anyone. No, I don't deserve to wrestle anyone. So yeah, it's hard to picture myself in that situation. I think I'm lucky that so many people that have been wrestling for the entirety of the time or the majority of the time are still wrestling and still active on shows. I recently got to wrestle Dave at ReAwakening. I'm wrestling Tyler Jacobs, formerly FN Carnage, and has been wrestling for 20 years as well. People like Bobby Marshall, he's still wrestling. So yeah, I can't put myself in that position, even though clearly I've had opportunities like that. But there's probably too many to name, and too many that I feel like I should not be wrestling.
I don't want to wrestle Bobby Marshall. I get too gassed. Maniac.
He'll get gassed before you do, don't worry.
Yeah, I would get murdered, but that's fine.
So all of the intensity in the world, and then some.
Well, for you, Dave, which one would have been sort of over the journey of them? Which one would have been sort of your favorite ReAwakening match?
If I can just answer the other question as well. So Jimmy immediately would have been my answer of, who do I have that personal story with that I would want to get another match out of him, because we were inextricably tied to each other from the whole beginning. And on a personal level, I wouldn't be half the wrestler that I am if I hadn't come up at the same time as Jimmy. He had such a profound impact on me. He was the guy who pushed me at training constantly. He was the standard to which I tried. He was the reason, I would get up and train so hard, is because I just wanted to be better or as good as that guy. Two names that I think we could easily pass over just in terms of who would help make this current generation of wrestlers even better than they are. Alex Kingston and Jay Taylor. Jay popped into training on a Monday night the other week and just blew everybody out of the water. That he's still so incredibly good. And Kingston was just always an excitement machine in the shows. And to just have that, to think of the level of performers that have walked away from EPW over the years that are still, such a rich part of the history is pretty incredible. And to still have the lineup that we do, we're incredibly lucky that so many of the guys have hung around. Richter's obviously another one who I've got a very personal story with. Best ReAwakening match. For me, the most memorable, I think, there's a 6-man street fight in 2003, which was the culmination of our year-and-a-half story of 3 young kids taking over the company, and then us older guys having to fight to wrestle the company away from them. Again, if I go back and watch that match, I'll probably be really sad. But just the emotional investment I had in that match is a really special time to me. but in terms of, you know, work that I'm proud of and a match that I really loved, probably the triple threat cage match that I had with Bobby Marshall and Richter. I think that was in 2008. First time I bled in a wrestling ring, and just wrestling had never felt more real to me. Jimmy actually spoke to me after the match and said he thought it was the best performance I'd ever turned in. And it just, you know, I like to feel things when I'm out there rather than trying too hard to think about how I'm going to feel in the moment. I like to just feel how I feel. To be locked in a cage with two large, aggressive men bleeding just took my performance to a whole nother level. That performance is probably even the wrong word for it. I probably consider myself a little more method. I like to be hit. I like to bleed. I like to just put my health in genuine risk and then see how I feel after that. But, you know, to me, method acting is just a dumb way of saying I'm not really acting at all. I have to get into this. I have to get into this headspace and actually feel like I'm fighting for my life. And only then can I truly be what I want to be in a wrestling ring. So yeah, that to me was probably one of the most special matches of my career for sure.
Oh, see, I thought you were going to say it was after you retired and some kid hugged you and said you was.
Thanks for the memories.
Leave the memories alone.
Look, guys, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, normally we'd push for ticket sales. Don't have to do it. You guys are sold out. For those who want to follow you guys on your socials and all of that, Julian, how can they do that for you?
I think I'm at Julian Ward 95 on everything. Instagram's definitely the one I use the most. Yeah, at Julian Ward 95.
Edith?
I think.
Yeah, I also. I think it's just at Edith Night. I think I made it easy because I knew that I would forget.
Stormy?
EPW Davis Storm. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And I know that for sure, guys. Come on, get your shit together.
Veteran.
Look, guys, like I said before, thank you so much for joining me. 20 years is a hell of an accomplishment for any form of entertainment to still be around and to be selling out at that 20-year show is another amazing accomplishment. She'll be very proud. Go out there, have fun on the night, and I will definitely be watching it as soon as I can. But thanks for joining us, guys.
Pleasure. Thanks, Toddy.
Thanks for having us.
Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, pour another cup. Let's be busy 20